Welcome to my channel, The World of Science Fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
The setting sun painted the abandoned city in hues of amber and crimson. Fractured spires of ancient technology jutted from the landscape like the ribs of a long-dead leviathan, their shadows stretching across the cracked streets. In these ruins, Liam had found his solitude, his exile. He moved through the familiar territory of his makeshift home, a 3-story building with the upper floors partially collapsed, creating a natural shield against both weather and unwanted eyes. The basement level had become his sanctuary over the past 3 years, meticulously organized with scavenged supplies, homemade traps rigged at strategic entry points, and a small garden of resilient native plants growing in containers by the light. Well, he'd engineered. Liam's routine was precise. Rise at dawn, check the perimeter sensors, tend the garden, spend midday scavenging, and return before sunset to reinforce his defenses. The colony had taught him engineering, but exile had taught him survival. Tonight he sorted his day's findings on the workbench. Medical supplies from an abandoned outpost, some functioning tech components, a book that wasn't too damaged to read. These quiet moments were the hardest when isolation pressed upon him like a physical weight. He'd begun talking to himself, sometimes in lengthy debates about ethics and survival, just to hear a human voice. Another day, another victory for the stubborn, he murmured, raising a small cup of distilled alcohol in a toast to no one. He'd saved these rations for nights when memories of his past life threatened to overwhelm him, of the colony's decision that his advocacy for peaceful coexistence with the native tribes was dangerous idealism, of being escorted to the gates and told never to return. 3 years alone in the ruins had hardened him in ways he never expected, but he still clung to the principles that had cost him everything. He refused to steal from the native caches he occasionally discovered, leaving small offerings instead. He documented their customs in a worn journal rather than exploiting their weaknesses. In a world that had rejected compassion as impractical, he had made it his final rebellion. The distant sound of drums pulled him from his thoughts. Tribal drums meant ceremony, and ceremony meant the locals would be occupied elsewhere. A perfect time to explore further from his shelter. Yet something about the rhythm felt wrong. Not celebration, but something darker. Curiosity overcame caution. Liam scaled a half-collapsed tower, his fingers finding purchase in crevices worn by time and weather. From the vantage point, he could see them gathered in the clearing beyond the city's edge. Blue-skinned warriors in ceremonial garb, moving in precise formation around 2 central figures. A ritual combat. The Rock Cats, as he had come to know them in his observations, settled leadership through combat rather than bloodlines or elections. Through his binoculars, he watched as a female warrior fought with a ferocity that took his breath away. Her movements were liquid grace, but her opponent was larger, stronger, and seemed to anticipate her every strike. The battle's conclusion was swift and brutal. The female warrior fell, blue blood seeping from wounds that would likely prove fatal without intervention. The victor raised a ceremonial blade, and Liam expected the killing stroke, but it never came. Instead, the tribe began to disperse, leaving the fallen warrior where she lay. Several warriors took position at the forest's edge, their intent clear. Anyone who approached the fallen would be met with violence. One of them, a tall, scarred warrior with elaborate markings, looked directly at the fallen female and demonstratively spat on the ground before turning away. The level of contempt in that simple gesture made Liam's blood boil. "They're abandoning her," he whispered to himself, lowering the binoculars. Something cold settled in his stomach as he watched the warriors ensure she died slowly, alone, a broken beast, no longer worthy of a quick end. Liam knew the smart choice. Stay hidden, stay alive. The tribes had made their hostility toward the colonists abundantly clear, and his own people had cast him out for suggesting peaceful coexistence was possible. He was one man alone against an entire world that seemed determined to reject him. Yet as the light faded and the warrior's blood continued to seep into the earth, Liam thought of his journals, his principles, his years of observing without interfering. Was survival worth the cost of his humanity? If he turned away now, what would separate him from those who had exiled him? With a resolve that surprised even himself, Liam climbed down from his perch, gathered his medical kit, and slipped into the dusk. Some choices weren't about being smart. Some were about remaining human. Pain was Kaya's universe. It radiated from her chest where Marak's blade had slipped past her guard, stealing not just her blood, but her future, her honor, her very identity. The ground beneath her back was cold, a stark contrast to the hot pulse of her life draining away. Her people's faces had been masks of stone as they turned away, leaving her to the slow death of the disgraced. No longer would she hunt beneath the stars. No longer would she tell stories by the fire. No longer would she be Kaya of the Rock Cats. She was nameless now. Broken. Nothing. As consciousness slipped from her grasp, she became aware of movement nearby. Through blurred vision, she saw a figure approach, pale skin, clothed in the garments of the invaders. One of the colony humans who had come to their world with their machines and their arrogance. She tried to reach for her dagger, but her fingers merely twitched against the dirt. If this was to be her end, killed by one of the pale strangers rather than by the ritual of her people, perhaps it was fitting, a final dishonor. "Don't move," the human said in his harsh tongue. "I'm trying to help you." Kaya spat a curse at him in her own language, though the effort sent fresh waves of agony through her body. The human seemed undeterred. He knelt beside her, and she felt pressure against her wound. Something cool spread across her skin, one of their medicines, no doubt. "Your people are watching," she managed to say in broken fragments of the human language she had learned from observing their settlements. "They will kill you for touching me." "They'll have to catch me first," the human replied, his voice strangely gentle as he worked to stem her bleeding. "My name is Liam." "I did not ask for your name," she hissed through clenched teeth, "or your death." "No, you didn't," he agreed, securing a bandage across her torso. "But I'm giving you both anyway." Before she could respond, he had lifted her from the ground. Pain exploded behind her eyes, and darkness claimed her once more. Liam moved through the ruins like a ghost, the unconscious warrior a dead weight in his arms. Every shadow concealed potential danger. Every sound might herald the approach of her tribesmen. They would kill them both if discovered. Her for the dishonor of receiving help. Him for the audacity of offering it. His sanctuary lay deep within the city's heart. A basement apartment in a building that had once housed dozens of families. The structure above had partially collapsed, creating a natural camouflage that had kept it safe from curious explorers, both human and native. By the time he laid her on his makeshift bed, his arms burned with exhaustion. In the harsh light of his solar lamps, her injuries looked even worse than he'd initially assessed. The main wound was a deep cut across her chest, deliberately placed to cause a slow death rather than a swift one. Ritual, not combat. "What did you do to deserve this?" he murmured, knowing she couldn't hear him. Working methodically, Liam cleaned and treated each wound. The blue-skinned natives had different biology from humans. Their blood was darker, thicker, and their tissues seemed to have unusual properties. During his exile, he had studied what little information the colony's scientists had gathered, supplementing it with his own observations of injured wildlife that shared some characteristics with the intelligent species. Hours passed as he worked. Twice, she nearly stopped breathing. Once, he feared infection had already set in, but by dawn, her condition had stabilized. Not safe, not yet, but no longer actively dying. Liam collapsed into his chair, watching the gentle rise and fall of her chest. He had just made enemies of an entire tribe for a warrior who would likely try to kill him when she woke. But as he drifted into exhausted sleep, he couldn't bring himself to regret it. Midnight shadows played across the walls of Liam's shelter. Kaya's eyes snapped open, adjusting instantly to the darkness. Pain radiated from her wounds, but it was different now. Duller, more managed. She remained motionless, assessing her surroundings with the heightened senses of a predator. Strange objects surrounded her, human technologies most unfamiliar. The air smelled of antiseptics, metal, and the unmistakable scent of the human who had interfered with her ritual death. Her gaze found him across the room, slumped in a chair, his breathing deep and regular. Asleep, vulnerable. With excruciating care, Kaya pushed herself to a sitting position. A wave of dizziness threatened to plunge her back into unconsciousness, but she fought it with iron discipline. Her trained eyes scanned for a weapon and found several. His tools, a makeshift spear leaning against the wall, and closest to her, a surgical blade on a small table. Her fingers closed around the cold metal. The human, Liam, he had called himself, had violated the most sacred of her people's traditions. To die with honor was the right of every warrior. To be saved by an outsider was a stain that could never be cleansed. By their laws, his life was forfeit, and through his death, she might reclaim some fragment of her shattered honor. Kaya slid from the bed, her feet touching the floor silently, despite her injuries. 3 steps would bring her to him. 1 clean strike across his throat, and it would be done. She would leave this place and vanish into the wilds, perhaps to find another tribe far from Rock Cat territory, or perhaps to live alone until her wounds or predators claimed her. But she would die on her terms, not as the broken thing her tribe had declared her to be. She took the first step, knife held in the killing position her mother had taught her as a child. The human didn't stir. The second step brought her close enough to see his face clearly in the dim light. There were lines there that spoke of hardship, of isolation. His hands, even in sleep, bore the marks of someone who had fought to survive against impossible odds, not unlike her own people. As she prepared to take the third and final step, her gaze fell on something that stopped her. A crude journal open on a table nearby, filled with drawings of her people. Not the hateful caricatures she had seen in the colony's propaganda, but careful, respectful studies. Beside them were notes in the human script, and though she couldn't read them, she recognized some of the phonetic approximations of her people's words. He had been studying them, learning from them, respecting them. The knife trembled in her hand. This human had risked everything to save her life, had brought her to his sanctuary, had used precious medicines on an enemy. Why? The question paralyzed her. In her culture, such actions would only make sense if he sought to claim her as a war prize or expected some valuable service in return. Yet he slept unguarded, having asked for nothing. Kaya found herself backing away, the knife still clutched in her hand but no longer raised to strike. She returned to the bed, her mind in turmoil. The ease with which she could kill him warred with the growing suspicion that she was missing something vital about his motivations. She would wait, watch, learn, and then decide if his blood was truly the price of her honor. When Liam woke at dawn, he found Kaya sitting upright, the surgical blade in her hand, but oriented with its point toward herself rather than outward in threat. Their eyes met, his wary, hers unreadable. "You could have killed me in my sleep," he observed calmly, making no sudden movements. "Yes," she replied, her accent thick, but the word clear. "Why didn't you?" Kaya regarded him silently for a long moment. "I wish to understand first." Liam nodded slowly, as if her choice to postpone his murder was perfectly reasonable. "You need food, water, more medicine. I'll get them." He rose, moving deliberately, giving her ample opportunity to strike if that was her decision. When he returned with supplies, he set them down beside her, then stepped back, giving her space. "If you're going to kill me," he said quietly, "at least tell me your name first." The simplicity of the request caught her off guard. "I have no name anymore," she replied in his language, the words clumsy on her tongue. "I am broken." "You don't look broken to me," he said. "Wounded, yes. Angry, definitely. But not broken. You know nothing of my ways." "True." He straightened in his chair, wincing at the stiffness in his neck. "But I know something about being cast out by your own people. About having your identity stripped away because you don't fit their vision of what you should be." The food sat untouched between them. "Why did you help me?" "Because it was the right thing to do," he answered simply. Kaya reached for the bowl, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "The right thing? You have doomed us both. My people will hunt me for accepting help. They will hunt you for giving it." "They were already hunting me for existing," Liam shrugged, "but they'll have to find us first." She studied him with new interest as she cautiously tasted the food. This human was either profoundly wise or dangerously naive. Perhaps both. "Kaya," she said finally, "my name is Kaya." Deliberately, she rotated the blade and set it down on the floor beside her, not surrendering it, but no longer holding it. Liam nodded once, understanding the gesture for what it was. Not trust, not yet, but a willingness to suspend hostility. Days passed and Kaya's condition improved, but too slowly. Fever came and went, and the wound on her chest showed the angry red lines of infection beginning to spread. Liam's medicines were helping, but not enough. "The infection is spreading," he said on the fifth night, his face grim as he examined the wound. "We need stronger antibiotics. Colonial grade." Kaya's golden eyes, dulled by fever, fixed on him. "You cannot return to your people." "No," he agreed, "but I know where to find what we need." He explained his plan as he prepared, an abandoned research outpost on the far side of the ruins, a 3-hour journey through territory frequented by both tribal patrols and colony scout drones. It had been stripped of most valuable equipment when the scientists evacuated, but he knew from past exploration that the emergency medical cache might still be intact. "Too dangerous," Kaya protested, trying to rise from the bed only to fall back, weakened by infection. "They will kill you." "Only if they catch me," Liam replied with a grim smile. "And I've gotten pretty good at not being caught." He left before dawn, moving through the ruins with practiced stealth, following pathways he'd mapped during his years of solitary exploration. The outpost stood on a ridge overlooking a valley, its prefabricated structures weathered by years of exposure. Colony warning signs still adorned the perimeter fence, claiming military jurisdiction over a facility that had been abandoned for years. Liam slipped through a gap in the fence, alert for any signs of recent activity. The main laboratory had been thoroughly looted, but he headed directly for the emergency shelter, a reinforced bunker designed to withstand both natural disasters and native attacks. The door, once secured by an electronic lock, hung askew from broken hinges. Inside, chaos greeted him, equipment scattered, supply cabinets overturned. He worked methodically, searching each storage unit, finding mostly empty containers and broken vials. A noise outside froze him in place. Voices, human voices. Colony security, doing a routine check on abandoned facilities. He ducked behind an overturned desk, calculating his options. The voices grew closer. "Said they saw movement in this sector yesterday," one voice was saying. "Probably just scavengers." "Or that exile they're still looking for," another replied. "The one who went native. There's a standing reward for information leading to his capture, you know. Dead or alive. They didn't specify, which tells you all you need to know." The footsteps reached the bunker entrance. Liam controlled his breathing, considering his options. His best chance was to wait them out. Security teams rarely did thorough inspections of already looted facilities. "Check inside, I'll take the perimeter." So much for that plan. Liam tensed, prepared to fight if necessary. His hand closed around a broken metal rod. Not much, but better than nothing. The guard entered, weapon drawn, sweeping the beam of his flashlight across the destruction. Liam remained perfectly still as the light passed just above his hiding place. The guard moved deeper into the bunker, giving Liam a clear path to the exit. He could slip out now undetected and try again another day. But Kaya might not have another day. His gaze fell on a cabinet near the far wall, its security seal still intact. The medical cache, exactly what he needed, directly in the guard's path. Liam made his decision. Picking up a small piece of debris, he threw it into the far corner of the bunker. The clatter echoed loudly, drawing the guard's attention and flashlight beam away from both Liam and the cabinet. "Who's there?" the guard called out, moving cautiously toward the noise. Liam moved silently, years of stealth paying off as he crept to the cabinet. The lock was electronic but had a manual override for emergencies. He inserted his scavenged access card, taken from a dead scientist years ago, and held his breath. The cabinet clicked open just as the guard, finding nothing, began to turn back toward him. Liam grabbed the first clearly marked antibiotic package he saw, along with several other emergency supplies, and dove behind another piece of equipment. "What the?" The guard had spotted the now open cabinet. "Command, the medical cache has been breached. Someone's here." A crackle of radio static, then, "Secure the area. Backup is 2 minutes out." Liam cursed silently. 2 minutes. He needed a distraction, something to... The idea came to him instantly. He retrieved a small device from his pocket, a remote trigger for one of his homemade alarms, intended as a last resort. Setting it to maximum sensitivity, he slid it across the floor toward the bunker entrance. When the guard moved toward the cabinet, Liam made his move, darting toward the exit. The guard spun, weapon raised. The alarm triggered, emitting a piercing wail that echoed through the bunker. The guard instinctively covered his ears, and in that moment of distraction, Liam was through the door and running. Shouts behind him confirmed that he'd been spotted. Gunfire erupted, bullets pinging off metal structures as he zigzagged between buildings. The colony had strict rules about shooting to kill, but he doubted those applied to him anymore. Liam plunged into the ruins, his knowledge of the territory his only advantage. He led his pursuers through collapsing structures, over unstable bridges, and finally into an area known to be frequented by one of the more aggressive native predators. The security team, hearing the distinctive call of the beast, abandoned their pursuit. By the time he reached his sanctuary, night had fallen, and his body was a catalog of minor injuries. Scrapes, bruises, a graze from a bullet that had come too close. But his pack contained what Kaya needed. She was awake when he entered, her condition visibly worse. Her eyes widened at his appearance. "You are injured," she stated, attempting to rise despite her weakness. "Nothing serious," Liam assured her, already preparing the antibiotics. "But I found what we need." As he administered the medication, Kaya's hand caught his wrist. "Why?" she asked again, the question that seemed to define their strange relationship. "Why risk your life for mine?" Liam was silent for a long moment, considering the question more deeply than before. Finally, he said, "Because in a world where both our peoples cast us out, maybe the only rebellion left is to care about someone we're supposed to hate." Something shifted in Kaya's expression, understanding perhaps, or recognition of a truth she'd been reluctant to acknowledge. She released his wrist but maintained his gaze. "Then we are both rebels now," she said softly. Days stretched into weeks as Kaya recovered. The small apartment became a strange battleground of cultural exchange, fraught with misunderstandings and moments of unexpected connection. Liam learned that the ritual she had undergone was a leadership challenge. As the former second-in-command, she had fought the tribe's strongest warrior, Merak, for the right to lead after their previous chieftain's death. "To lose is not dishonor," she explained one evening, as they shared a meal of synthesized protein in foraged roots. "To be left alive after loss, this is the greatest shame. It means I was not worthy of a clean death." "That seems unnecessarily harsh," Liam replied. Kaya's golden eyes flashed. "Your people have no concept of honor. You come to our world, take our lands, ignore our customs." "I didn't," he interrupted. "That's why I'm here, and not with the colony. I believed we should learn from your people, not conquer them. And for this, they cast you out?" There was skepticism in her voice, but also curiosity. "For suggesting peaceful coexistence?" "Yes." Liam's smile was tinged with bitterness. Turns out the official mission statement of respectful exploration had some fine print about resource acquisition, taking priority over native relations. Silence fell between them, broken only by the distant sounds of the ruins settling. Finally, Kaya spoke again. "Teach me more of your language," she said. It wasn't a request, but a demand. "Only if you teach me yours," he countered. And so began a new ritual. Each day they exchanged words, phrases, cultural concepts. Liam learned the complex honorifics of the rock cats, the subtle distinctions between their words for different types of courage. Kaya absorbed the technical vocabulary of the colonists, the idioms that made no sense without understanding Earth's distant cultures. With language came understanding. With understanding came a fragile trust. "Your bandage needs changing," Liam announced, entering their shared space with fresh supplies. A month had passed, and Kaya's wounds had healed remarkably well, thanks to both his care and her species' natural regenerative abilities. She sat cross-legged on the floor, sharpening her reclaimed hunting knife, a weapon he had retrieved for her during one of his scavenging trips, a peace offering of sorts. "I can do it myself," she replied, but her tone lacked the hostility of earlier days. "Probably," he agreed, "but some angles are difficult to reach. Besides, I need to check for infection." Kaya sighed but set aside her blade. She had learned that certain battles with the human weren't worth fighting, especially when he adopted that tone of medical authority. As he carefully removed the old bandages, his fingers brushed against the textured skin of her shoulder, similar to human skin, but with a subtle pattern like the scales of earth reptiles. He had become fascinated by these differences, approaching them with scientific curiosity rather than the revulsion she had expected. "The wound is healing cleanly," he noted. "Another week and you probably won't need bandages at all." "And then what?" Kaya asked, the question that had been hovering between them finally spoken aloud. Liam's hand stilled. "That's up to you. You're free to go whenever you want. I'm not keeping you prisoner. You know I cannot return to my people. I know. He resumed his work, applying a healing salve to the nearly closed wound. But this world is vast. There must be other options besides staying with a colony outcast in these ruins. Kaya turned to face him, her movement so sudden that he almost dropped the bandages. Why do you speak of my leaving as if it is decided? Have I worn out my welcome, human? What? No. Liam seemed genuinely startled by her conclusion. I just assumed you'd want to be free of this. Of me. You assume much, she said, her eyes narrowing. I decide my path now. Not tradition, not ritual, not you. A slow smile spread across his face. Fair enough. My people have a saying, Kaya continued. One who saves a life becomes responsible for that life. By their laws, which I no longer follow but understand, you and I are bound. Bound, Liam repeated, the word heavy with implication. Not as mates, she clarified quickly, a darker blue tinge coloring her cheeks. At the closest word in your language might be battle companions, those who guard each other's backs. Partners, Liam suggested. Yes, partners. She tested the word, seeming to find it acceptable. Unless you wish me to leave? No, he admitted. I've grown used to your charming personality and constant criticism of my cooking. The joke, delivered in the deadpan manner she had come to recognize as his humor, drew a rare laugh from her. Then it is settled. We are partners until one of us chooses otherwise. As Liam secured the fresh bandage, their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them, an acknowledgement that what had begun as reluctant dependency had evolved into something neither had, anticipated choice. As Kaya's strength returned, she insisted on joining Liam during his scavenging missions. At first he protested. Her wounds were still healing, and the risk of discovery was too great, but she was adamant. I will not be a burden, she stated, her tone brooking no argument, and you need someone to watch your back. She was right, of course. 2 sets of eyes, 2 sets of ears, 2 warriors instead of 1. Their chances of survival improved dramatically. One morning, as they practiced combat techniques in a secluded courtyard, Kaya teaching Liam the fighting style of her people while he showed her how to use the crossbow he had crafted, she suddenly went still, nostrils flaring. What is it? Liam asked, instantly alert. Kaya moved to a nearby wall, crouching to examine something Liam couldn't see. When she straightened, her expression was grim. In her hand was a small carved token, a polished stone etched with tribal markings. Hunter's marker, she said, her voice tight. Fresh. The scent is no more than a day old. Liam felt his blood go cold. They're already here? In the ruins? Not just here. Kaya pointed to the specific markings on the stone. This is Merrick's personal sigil. He leads the hunt himself. She met Liam's eyes, her own hard as amber. The time we thought we had, it's gone. They could find us at any moment. The implied ticking clock hung between them, transforming their sanctuary into a trap waiting to be sprung. Then we need to prepare, Liam said, mind racing through options. Defenses, escape routes, contingencies. Yes, Kaya pocketed the stone marker. But first we need better weapons. I cannot fight Merak's hunters with a medical blade in your toys. Despite the gravity of their situation, Liam found himself smiling. I know just the place. The warning came at dawn, 3 months into their unlikely alliance. Liam woke to find Kaya already alert, her body tense with readiness, ears tilted toward the eastern section of ruins. What is it? He whispered, reaching for the makeshift spear he kept near his bed. Hunting party, she replied, her voice barely audible, moving systematically through the ruins. Not colony soldiers. They make too much noise. My people. Cold dread settled in Liam's stomach. They had known this might happen eventually, but the relative peace of recent weeks had lulled them into a false sense of security. How many? At least 5. Merak's elite hunters. She turned to him, her expression grim. He must consider us a significant threat to send so many. Us? I thought they'd just be after me for interfering. Kaya's laugh was bitter. I survived when I was meant to die. I accepted help from an outsider. I have not returned to face punishment. Any one of these would merit death. Together, I represent a challenge to Merrick's authority. a loose end. Then we need to move. I have another shelter prepared. Further in. No. Her decision was firm. Running deeper only traps us. We must either escape the ruins entirely or make our stand here. Liam wanted to argue but recognized the strategic sense in her words. They had discussed contingency plans before, but always with the luxury of theoretical distance. Now theory was becoming deadly reality. How long do we have? Hours, perhaps. They're being careful, thorough. He nodded, mind racing through options. Then we prepare. This may be our territory, but they're hunting on home ground too. We need to change the rules. A slow, predatory smile spread across Kaya's face. Now you begin to think like a warrior of the rock cats. Together they gathered their essential supplies, medicines, weapons, food concentrates, anything they couldn't afford to lose if forced to abandon their shelter permanently. As they worked, Liam outlined his plan. The eastern quadrant, the one with the collapsed transit station, the underground levels are still intact, and I've mapped most of the passageways. If we can lure them inside, a trap, Kaya finished his thought, but they are not fools. They will suspect such tactics. That's why we make it look like we're fleeing in panic, not leading them anywhere specific. Liam pulled out a crude map he had drawn of the ruins. We leave obvious signs of hasty departure, heading north. Meanwhile, we circle back through this maintenance tunnel and set up here. He pointed to a junction where several passageways converge. The acoustics in that chamber are disorienting. Sound bounces unpredictably. We can use that to separate them, make them think we're in different locations. Kaya studied the map, then nodded slowly. It could work. But if we are cornered, then we fight, Liam said simply. Together! The word hung between them, weighted with meaning neither was ready to fully examine. The hunters were closer than they'd estimated. As Liam and Kaya slipped from their shelter, a warning call echoed through the ruins. A perfect mimicry of a local bird that was anything but natural. They've spotted us, Kaya hissed, pulling Liam into the shadow of a collapsed wall. Change of plans. We go directly to the transit station. Now. They ran, no longer concerned with stealth. Speed was their only advantage now. Behind them, more bird calls signaled the hunters' coordination as they closed in. The transit station loomed ahead. A once grand structure, now partially reclaimed by indigenous vegetation. Its main hall had collapsed decades ago, but the service areas below remained largely intact. A maze of maintenance tunnels and storage rooms that Liam had carefully mapped during his years of exile. They skidded through a concealed entrance just as the first hunter appeared on the skyline behind them. Kaya pulled Liam deeper into the darkness, navigating by memory from his descriptions. We need to split up, she whispered once they had put some distance between themselves and the entrance. That wasn't the plan, Liam objected. Plans change when circumstances change. Her eyes, better adapted to darkness than his, gleamed with determination. I know how they hunt. They will expect us to stay together. If we separate, we can set the traps more quickly and from multiple approaches. Liam wanted to protest further, but recognized the tactical wisdom in her suggestion. Fine, but we meet at the central chamber in 30 minutes, no matter what. If one of us doesn't arrive, the other continues alone, Kaya finished. It was not sentiment, but pragmatism. With a quick clasp of forearms, a gesture she had taught him, signifying mutual respect between warriors, they parted ways in the darkness. Liam moved swiftly through the tunnels, setting up the traps they had hastily prepared. Tripwires connected to noisemakers that would draw attention in the wrong direction. False trails created with scraps of fabric. At key junctions, he left more sophisticated surprises. Pressure plates that would trigger the release of caustic cleaning chemicals stored in ancient maintenance closets. Not lethal, but disorienting and painful. Enough to give them an edge. As he worked, the distant sounds of the hunters grew more distinct. They had entered the underground complex and were spreading out, communicating with their bird call signals. Disciplined, methodical, exactly as Kaya had predicted. The 30-minute deadline approached. Liam made his way toward the central chamber, a hub where 6 passageways converged, once a nexus for maintenance workers to access different sections of the transit system. Now, it would serve as their battleground. He arrived first, using the time to check his weapons and prepare the final elements of their defense. The minutes stretched with agonizing slowness. Where was Kaya? A noise from one of the tunnels snapped him to alertness. He raised his spear, ready to strike. "It's me," came Kaya's whispered voice as she slipped into the chamber. They separated into pairs. One group triggered my third trap. The others are being more cautious now. Relief washed over Liam, followed immediately by renewed tension. "How long?" "Minutes, no more." She moved to his side, unsheathing her hunting knife. "They know we're setting traps. Marak is with them." I glimpsed him. He's leading personally. That was unexpected and concerning. The tribal leader risking himself rather than sending subordinates suggested this was more than a simple hunt for dishonored outcasts. "Why would he come himself?" Liam muttered. Kaya's expression darkened. "Because this is no longer just about honor. This is about power. If I live, if we both live, we represent a challenge to everything he claims leadership stands for." Before Liam could respond, a distinct clicking sound echoed from one of the tunnels, the sign of a tripwire being triggered. Moments later, confused shouts confirmed their trap had worked. "It begins," Kaya whispered, melting into the shadows of one of the recessed maintenance alcoves. Liam took position in another. The crossbow he had crafted from scavenged materials held ready. The first hunter entered the chamber cautiously, his blue skin adorned with the war paint of an elite tracker. His nostrils flared, seeking their scent. Behind him, a second warrior moved with similar caution, weighted throwing blades held ready. Liam waited, controlling his breathing as Kaya had taught him. The moment had to be perfect. The hunters moved further into the chamber, their attention focused on the tunnels ahead rather than the alcoves on either side. 3 steps more and they would be in position. 2 steps. 1. Now. Liam fired his crossbow, the bolt striking the second hunter in the leg. Not a killing shot, but enough to disable. Simultaneously, Kaya launched herself from her hiding place, her blade describing a deadly arc toward the first hunter's unprotected neck. But these were elite warriors. The first hunter spun with inhuman speed, catching Kaya's wrist before her blade could find its mark. The second, despite his injury, had already pulled the bolt from his leg and was throwing one of his blades toward Liam's position. The battle erupted into chaos. Liam ducked the thrown blade and charged forward, using his spear to keep the wounded hunter at bay. Kaya and the first hunter had become a blur of movement, her knife against his ceremonial bone blade. Strength matched against speed. A cry of pain, Kaya's, as the hunter's blade found her shoulder. Liam's attention wavered for a crucial second. It was all the wounded hunter needed to close the distance, tackling him to the ground, sending his spear clattering across the floor. Powerful hands closed around Liam's throat. Spots danced before his eyes as he struggled, fingers searching desperately for anything that might serve as a weapon. His hand closed around a fragment of metal on the floor, debris from the station's collapse. With the last of his strength, he drove it into his attacker's side. The hunter howled, his grip loosening enough for Liam to break free. Gasping for air, he scrambled toward his fallen spear. Across the chamber, Kaya had gained the upper hand against her opponent. Her knife was buried in the hunter's chest, but as he fell, he pulled her down with him, leaving her vulnerable to attack from behind. Because there, emerging from another tunnel, was Marak himself. Tall even for one of his species, his blue skin covered in elaborate scarification denoting his victories, the tribal leader moved with predatory grace. In his hands, he held twin blades that gleamed with a wicked sheen in the dim light. "Traitor!" he snarled at Kaya in their native tongue. "You dishonor yourself further by fighting alongside the invader." Kaya pulled her knife free from the fallen hunter and faced her former leader. "The only dishonor was in abandoning our traditions of mercy for your vision of strength." Marak's laugh was cold. "Mercy, weakness. Your human pet has infected you with their softness." "Not weakness," Liam called out, drawing the tribal leader's attention as he retrieved his spear. "Compassion. Something your leadership seems to lack." "You dare speak to me of leadership?" Marak's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "You who know nothing of our ways?" "I know enough," Liam replied, edging closer to Kaya. "I know that true strength comes from protecting others, not disposing of them when they're no longer useful." Marak's eyes narrowed. Pretty words from a dead man. He moved with blinding speed, blades flashing as he attacked them both simultaneously. Liam barely managed to deflect one strike with his spear, while Kaya ducked under the other. They fell into a desperate rhythm, one defending while the other attacked, moving as a coordinated unit rather than individual fighters. But Marak was the tribe's champion for a reason. His every movement was precisely calculated, his attacks targeting their weakest points with unerring accuracy. A slash across Liam's arm, a kick that sent Kaya stumbling backward. They were being worn down methodically. "You fight well together," Marak acknowledged, his breathing controlled despite the exertion. "But it will not save you. The hunt always ends the same way." "Not always," Kaya countered, blood trickling from a cut on her forehead. "Sometimes the hunter becomes the hunted." She gave Liam a meaningful glance, a subtle tilt of her head toward one of the tunnel entrances. He understood immediately. The final trap, the one they had prepared as a last resort. Liam feinted left, drawing Marak's attention, while Kaya retreated toward the tunnel in question. The tribal leader, sensing victory, pressed his advantage against Liam, forcing him to give ground. "Your human dies first," Marak told Kaya, his back now to her. "Then you will face the slow death you escaped before." "Look at me when you threaten me, coward," Kaya snarled. It was precisely the insult needed to make Marak turn, putting him directly beneath the weakened section of ceiling they had rigged earlier. Liam drove his spear into the pressure plate hidden beneath a layer of debris. A grinding sound filled the chamber as ancient mechanisms, repurposed for their desperate plan, activated. Marak looked up just as the ceiling collapsed. Tons of concrete and metal crashed down, cutting off the tunnel entrance and burying the tribal leader beneath the rubble. Silence fell, broken only by their labored breathing and the settling of dust. "Is he?" Liam asked, leaning heavily on his spear, blood flowing freely from the wound on his arm. Kaya approached the rubble cautiously. "Yes, he fought well. His spirit will find honor in the ancestral plains." Despite everything Marak had done, she spoke the ritual words for a fallen warrior. Some traditions ran too deep to abandon. The moment of reflection was short-lived. Distant shouts echoed from the remaining tunnels, the rest of the hunting party alerted by the collapse. "We need to move," Liam urged, wincing as he tried to stem the bleeding from his arm. Kaya was at his side in an instant, tearing a strip from her clothing to bind the wound. "You are injured badly." "I'll live," he grimaced, "which is more than we'll be able to say if we stay here." She nodded, supporting his weight as they hurried toward the least likely tunnel to be watched. They moved as quickly as Liam's injury allowed, navigating the labyrinth beneath the ruined station, always alert for the sounds of pursuit. After what felt like hours, they emerged into the open air through a maintenance hatch Liam had discovered months earlier. The night had fallen during their time underground, the darkness providing welcome cover. "We need somewhere safe," Kaya said, concern evident as she examined Liam's increasingly pale complexion. "The wound is deeper than I thought." Liam struggled to focus through waves of dizziness. Blood loss was taking its toll, but he forced himself to think. "There's a bunker, old colonial military outpost, abandoned when they pulled back the perimeter, 2 kilometers east. Can you make it that far?" "Do I have a choice?" He managed a weak smile. They moved through the darkness, Liam growing heavier against Kaya's support with each step. Twice they had to hide as search parties passed nearby. The hunters had not given up despite the loss of their leader. The bunker appeared as a low concrete structure, half buried in the landscape, its entrance concealed by years of unchecked vegetation growth. Inside, emergency lighting still functioned on backup power, casting a pale blue glow over Spartan accommodations, cots, storage containers, and most importantly, a medical station. Kaya helped Liam to a cot before examining the medical supplies. Most were beyond their expiration dates, but some basics, antiseptics, bandages, sutures, remained viable. "I need to clean and close the wound," she told him, gathering supplies. "It will hurt." "I trust you," he replied simply. She worked methodically, cleaning away blood and dirt, her movements gentle despite the urgency. When it came time to close the wound, Liam gritted his teeth against the pain, but made no sound. "You would have made a good warrior of the rock cats," Kaya observed as she finished the final suture. "Few can endure pain so silently." "High praise," he murmured, fatigue washing over him now that the immediate crisis had passed. "Or you're just a terrible doctor." Her laugh was unexpected and genuine. "Rest now. I will keep watch." Liam caught her hand as she turned away. "They'll be looking for us." "Let them look. This place is well hidden. Not from their trackers. They can follow scent trails for kilometers." Kaya's expression darkened with realization. "My blood and yours. They will find us by dawn. She looked around the bunker, assessing their options. The structure was defensible, but had only one exit. If found, they would be trapped. We need to mask our scent, Liam said, fighting to stay conscious despite his body's demand for rest. Confuse the trail. Kaya was silent for a long moment, her internal struggle visible on her face. Finally, she knelt beside him and leaned close. There is a way, she said quietly, but once done, it cannot be undone. What do you mean? My saliva. It contains compounds unique to my lineage. It was how mates recognized each other in ancient times. Before we developed language, it would cover your scent with mine. Liam tried to process her words through his fog of pain and exhaustion. You want to spit on me? Despite the gravity of their situation, Kaya's lips twitched with amusement. No, human. The enzymes must be applied directly to the wound. It will accelerate your healing, but leave my marker on you, permanently. And that's significant. It would mark you as under my protection. As mine. The last word carried weight beyond its simple meaning. In the old traditions, it would make you part of my clan, my family. The implications hung between them, transforming the air in the small bunker. Will it help us survive? Liam asked finally. Yes, she answered, but my saliva, it will leave a trace they can detect from a kilometer away. My scent on you. They'll know what it means. That I'm one of you now? Kaya shook her head slowly. That you are mine to protect. That I have claimed you. They will see it as the ultimate betrayal of our ways, to bind myself to an outsider. So they'll hunt us both even more determinedly. Yes. Liam was quiet for a long moment, considering. Then with a gesture that surprised them both, he exposed his wounded arm. Do it. Kaya hesitated, her golden eyes searching his. You understand what this means? There is no reversal. I understand enough, he replied softly. We're already outcast together. Might as well make it official. Her hand trembled slightly as she unwrapped his bandage. Carefully, reverently, she lowered her face to his wound and let her saliva flow into it. The effect was immediate, a cooling sensation that spread through his arm, dulling the pain. When she raised her head again, something had changed between them. A boundary crossed, a new reality acknowledged. Now what? Liam asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Kaya sat beside him on the edge of the cot, their shoulders touching. For a long moment she was silent, gathering her thoughts. In my culture, she began, there is a ritual for those who choose to bind their fates together. Not mates, but something older, more primal. Battle siblings, we call them. Those who choose to live and die as one. Like what we've done here? Yes, she nodded. But it is not just about survival. Not anymore. Her golden eyes met his, unwavering. When I first woke in your shelter, I held a blade and considered your death. When you left to find medicine, I feared you would not return. And now. She touched the wound where her saliva had merged with his blood. Now I know that whatever path lies before me, I would walk it beside you. Liam reached up with his good arm, his fingers tracing the pattern of scales along her jaw. A gesture he'd never dared before. All my life I've been looking for somewhere to belong. First on Earth, then in the colony, then alone in the ruins. I never thought I'd find it with someone I was supposed to fear. And I never thought I would find honor in exile, Kaya replied, leaning slightly into his touch. Yet here we are. What happens tomorrow? Liam asked. They'll still be hunting us. Tomorrow we move deeper into the wilderness. There are regions beyond the mountains that even my people fear to tread. Sacred places, or so the elders claim. Perhaps they will become our sanctuary. And if they find us? Kaya's expression hardened with determination. Then we fight. Together, as we were meant to. Liam looked down at his bandaged arm, then back at Kaya. A weak, bitter smile formed on his lips. Then we are both ghosts to our people, he said. She nodded, her hand finding his. Yes, ghosts who still breathe. In the pale emergency lighting of the abandoned bunker, an outcast human and a disgraced warrior sat together, the barriers between their worlds dissolving like morning mist. Outside, hunters searched for their trail, but in this moment, there was only the quiet understanding that neither would face the wilderness alone again. Ghosts who still breathe, Liam repeated, feeling the truth of it settle in his bones. I can live with that. Kaya's rare smile illuminated her features. As can I. They sat in companionable silence as the night deepened around them, two exiles who had found in each other a new kind of belonging.